Tank weighed 108 pounds at 6 months old. This is the fact that everyone returned to when the story came out, as if the number itself explained everything. The fear, the misunderstanding, the 5 days of conflict between a father and a dog who were both, in their own way, trying to protect the same thing. Tank was an English Mastiff. He was still technically a puppy. His paws were the size of small plates, and his head had not yet grown proportional to his body, which gave him the specific comedy of a puppy who had been issued adult equipment before he was ready for it. Ben had gotten Tank before the baby. This was the fact that everyone began with when they were deciding how to manage the arrival of their daughter, Rose. Ben had grown up with dogs. He understood large breeds. He had trained Tank with patience and consistency, and Tank had responded to that training with the earnest enthusiasm of a dog who deeply wanted to please the people he loved. But Rose was new. Rose was small and fragile, and Ben was not willing to risk her on his assessment of a dog's character, however well-founded that assessment was. He had a plan. The plan was management, baby gates, supervised access, a careful, slow introduction. The plan lasted 3 days. On the 4th day, Rose was crying in her bassinet in the bedroom, and Ben was in the kitchen getting a bottle, and Tank was supposed to be behind the baby gate at the kitchen entrance. He was not behind the baby gate. Ben returned to the bedroom and found Tank lying on the floor beside the bassinet. Not against it, not leaning on it, not touching it. Lying on the floor approximately 2 feet from the bassinet, his enormous head resting on his front paws, watching Rose with the specific attention of someone who had been given a job. Rose, somehow, had stopped crying. Subscribe so you don't miss what the pediatric nurse saw. Some forms of comfort don't require proximity. Their neighbor, Patricia, was a pediatric nurse who had been doing home visits for 17 years. She came over that afternoon for a scheduled check on Rose and found Ben in a state of sustained alarm about the gate incident. She listened to the description. Then she asked to see where Tank had been lying. She stood in the bedroom doorway and looked at the spot on the floor. She looked at the bassinet. She looked at Tank, who was back behind his gate and watching from the kitchen with the patient expression of a dog who understood that the system was currently not in his favor. She said, "Mastiffs are pressure-sensitive animals. Their size means they're acutely aware of their own physical impact. Well-socialized Mastiffs around infants often self-limit their own proximity in a way that smaller dogs don't, because they understand their scale." He put himself close enough to be present and far enough to be safe. That's not an accident. She also said, "Your gate needs a higher latch. But the dog is not the problem. Not to exclude Tank, but to control the parameters. Always supervised. Always the right setup. Always his decision, not Tank's." Within those parameters, Tank continued to lie on the floor, 2 feet from wherever Rose was. Not 1 foot, not 3, 2 feet. He measured it himself, somehow, in whatever unit of measurement a 6-month-old Mastiff uses to calculate the geometry of not being a danger to someone he cared about. Has a large dog ever surprised you with their gentleness around something small? Tell us in the comments. Rose is 4 now. She calls Tank my dog in the particular proprietary way of small children who have decided that a relationship is theirs to name. Tank, at 4 years old and 180 pounds, accepts this with the grace of an animal who has long since made peace with the arrangement. He still lies 2 feet away. Not 1, not 3. Subscribe. The big ones often have the quietest hearts.